Hey, hello everyone. It's great to see you. I'm streaming in some new way today. And I want to talk about top 12 questions about stuttering that are coming up again and again, actually. Of course, there are many more questions about stuttering, but these are the top ones that I picked, and I'd love you to share your questions in the comments. I'd love to answer them as we go through this live or later on if you ask them after our live stream. And before we get to the top 10, 12 questions, a small announcement from me about my Free From Stutter Masterclass that is now up and running. I invite you there to check it out. I'll be starting my new program very soon. So before that, I'm sharing the best that I've learned about this transition to freedom from stuttering. So my suggestion for you to go and check it out. So let's come back to questions, to top 12 questions as they are coming to me from you over and over again. But again, I'd love to hear new questions if you have something else. So the first question, what is stuttering? And it's kind of obvious because if you stutter, you kind of know what is stuttering. But at the same time, we want to realize, I have just one simple idea about it, is that we want to focus not only on the physical part of our speaking, but also try to see the invisible part of stuttering. We actually know about it, and that's the emotional pain we feel about it or might feel about it, the embarrassment, the negative feelings, and as a result, desire to hide it, and as a result, more anxiety and tension about speaking. So we want to realize that big invisible part, and basically because we have this emotional pain and tension associated with speaking. That's why we're actually thinking what we can do about stuttering, how we can get free from that negative feeling and that negative state we're getting into. So that's my first idea about this first question, what is stuttering? Please let me know if you can hear me. I see somebody's watching, so it's great to have you here. So if you just let me know that you can hear me perfectly, that would be awesome. So the next question I want to cover today, the usual question, what causes stuttering? And it's a question to you as well, because usually we come up with our stories feeling that there is something that triggered maybe stuttering. We attribute stuttering or development of stuttering to something. So I really love to know your maybe story or what happened to you that you think helped to develop stuttering. But anyways, of course, we understand that there is something to genetics, to the way we're wired, we're born. There is something to, again, genetics, heredity, because many people say that they have relatives who stutter, like I do have relatives who stutter. There is something to neurology as well. Most people and researchers, experts believe it's neurological, like origins, like the roots in our neurology. We also definitely have some emotional moments. Many people who stutter are more sensitive or highly sensitive people. There is a term. So we feel something like deeper or like stronger. So and oftentimes we have in our past some repressed emotions, so or emotional traumas, and of course like physical traumas, right? They also might contribute. Like in my case, I fell off a tree, so like I definitely felt something happening with my head at some point. Great. Yeah, it's awesome that you give some comments because I see that you can hear me. Awesome. So these are kind of the things that we usually hear, but I have a separate video. I'll be giving links in the description to separate videos from me. I have a video about two big causes of stuttering, and that's again two big pieces of stuttering once it's formed. And one is helplessness in the face of speech impediments that we feel. And the second one is the negative feeling associated with that helplessness, the embarrassment, the shame, the avoidance, desire to hide it. We might say something good to ourselves, but anyways, that's the response our body has to stuttering, so to speech impediments. We feel the tension, feel the anxiety, we get into a certain state. So I believe that these are the two big causes that we have right now, the helplessness and the negative feeling attached to it, even though of course we have some deeper kind of neurological, genetics, whatever, so something we cannot quite trace, but these two we can definitely see, feel, and we also can work with these two, the helplessness and the feeling negative about it, right? So that's the question about causes. I'll be giving a link to my video where I talk more about these two causes. I'd love again to know how you feel. What do you think? What is the cause for your stuttering? The next question, number 3. Is there any medicine or device that can cure stuttering? And even though the answer is no, and that's it basically, but we keep looking. We keep looking for some medicine, we keep asking for some device, for some app. So the medications that might be subscribed, like people might get some recommendation about some medications, they generally tend to relax our body, but they usually have some effects that might affect our body not in a very positive way. And second, they don't change our speaking pattern, obviously. So I really don't quite recommend going for any medications. Devices, they also work like glasses. They help when we're using them. Again, I have a separate video on that, but they don't aim to change the speaking pattern usually. They're not even promising that. So I, again, don't quite recommend going into devices as well. They don't change the medications, the devices, they don't change our speaking pattern. So I do suggest to think what we can actually do with that rather than look for some magic pill. Because actually looking for that magic pill, as long as we're looking for it, we postpone, we delay actually starting to do something about it. So this stuttering treatment mindset that somebody can do something for me, something some magic thing can change my speaking, we do want to change this mindset, stuttering treatment mindset, as I call it. Question number 4 I want to cover today is how to stop stuttering. So people, of course, are keeping asking this question. That's the most top of the mind question. So I stutter, how do I stop? And the obvious answer, first answer, is there's no way just to stop stuttering, right? Because stuttering is an automated pattern. Automated, like we have a speaking interaction, especially a high pressure interaction, like new people, maybe public speaking, maybe presentation, maybe oral answer class, or job interview. So, and we have a certain environment and we have a certain response. So it's highly automated. There is no way just to stop stuttering. But what I'm preaching about is building certain security, creating certain security in our speaking, and then growing that security. So what I'm calling the training speech, developing that training speech and making sure that it becomes part of our daily life. So we start speaking that training speech. So it becomes a part of our daily life. We just speak this way, gradually replacing and building a new speaking pattern, which of course also takes time. So again, there is no way just to stop stuttering, but there is a way to grow that new speaking pattern, to develop that new speaking pattern, and that's basically my Free from Stutter Master class is all about, that I'm running right now. So I'll be giving the link to it. I invite you to check it out. So the next question I want to cover is, people are keeping asking this again, why I don't stutter alone. And that's something that's really hard to understand, like stuttering. Why I don't stutter at some points, or I stutter much less in some settings. At some settings I stutter much more. If it's only neurological, why it's not kind of not even, not very consistent, why it goes like higher, lower, we have bad days, we have good days. So and the answer to that is obvious as well. Stuttering is not just a speaking disorder, right? It's communication disorder, and speaking itself requires usually we have certain interaction, we have certain emotional state that we get to. So stuttering is that emotional state. It's not only the physical part. And again, we're coming back to that invisible part of stuttering that we want to change. Desire to hide it, feeling negative about it, stuttering shame. So these things we want to work with. So that's why we stutter when we are in certain settings, but usually people are coming to the conclusion that if I don't stutter when I'm alone, so I just want to remove my anxiety. But again, there is no way to just detach and remove that anxiety, that tension from our speaking. It's inside our interaction. That's the way stuttering works. I see many comments, which is awesome. Thank you so much. I'm reading them all. I'm covering major, top questions. Of course, there are many, many more. I'd love to hear your questions. So please leave your questions about stuttering that you have, on top of your mind. That would be awesome. So I'll be reading them and we'll be coming back to you as well. The next question, number 5, number 6 we have. Number 6, why I don't stutter when I sing. Again, I'll give a link to a separate video where I'm talking more about it, where I'm kind of showing that, but the general idea that when we sing, we put more to our speaking. We have a more structured, rhythmical, like structure of our speaking. We prolong, we put some power to the vowel sounds actually that are voiced, right? And stuttering is speaking with a certain broken, impaired structure. So it's hard to start sometimes the airflow. We have interruptions in the airflow all the time, especially like when the consonant sounds, we have the consonant sounds. So, and we always we don't have the pauses. So singing solves that, right? It creates a certain structure in our speaking. So it's a great thing to observe what happens when we sing and to take those good things from singing, right? To put more structure, to put more power, to be more expressive, to have those pauses. Again, I'll be posting the link to a separate video about this where I'm actually showing and playing with the phrases. But the idea is that we do want to bring good stuff from singing into our speaking, for sure. The next question, why I stutter on certain hard sounds or words. Again, I also have a separate video on that. And oftentimes, people really think that these hard sounds or words like is stuttering. So they're trying to deal with those hard sounds and words. And my big idea, of course, the hard sounds and words, they just represent the problem, right? But the problem is much bigger. Again, it's an impairment in our structure. So the whole structure is impaired. So even though we might have specific, usually consonant sounds like b, p, t, s, right, where there is no voicing, no airflow, where we break the airflow. Sometimes it's ah for some people, especially like it's like a block where like we have that air for ah, but it's not coming out. And I have a separate video, real quick. Again, we have two major like exercises to go around this hard words and sounds. The first one, when we just start the airflow, like we say present or like positive or something, like we need to say something, and the first sound is hard, like p, positive. So a good exercise is just to remove that p, playing first with yourself, saying positive, positive. So the vowel, getting to the vowel sound is always something that we voice, positive, positive. And then attach a tiny p, positive, 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 positive. So so the p is not something that we want to voice. Positive, positive. So that's a good exercise to play with yourself, and even try to do that when you speak. Even if you say, oh, positive, 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 people might still understand. Again, that's just a trick, of course, but still, that's an exercise. When we have those consonants in the phrase, in the sentence, where we have the airflow break, like for example, I just have some example here, so give me a sec. For example, yeah, when we stop speaking, so when we stop speaking, right? We kind of stop the airflow with the consonants, and then we need to start the next one, speaking, stop speaking. So again, the exercise we could do with ourselves and trying to feel that in our speaking as well is to connect them, actually starting from the vowel sound. Like when we stop or stop speaking. So p in stop, p becomes part of the next piece, speaking. It becomes speaking when we stop speaking. So we don't finish it. We don't interrupt the airflow when we stop. When we stop speaking. When we stop speaking. So again, these are just some tips or exercise we can do with ourselves. But in general, again, my big idea is that we want to bring more security to the general structure of our speaking. And if we have that security, like launching the first sound, feeling the airflow in the phrase, making like pauses and stressing the main points, then those hard words and sounds, they just don't arise. We don't give ground for them to become hard words or sounds. So I'm preaching about the training speech, building the training speech for ourselves. And again, I have a separate link. I'll give that link about hard words and sounds as well in the description. The next question, number 8, how to deal with stuttering anxiety. I also have a separate video, and also we have some tips and the general idea. We want to build more security, the training speech, right? But the general tips, it's great to know what you do, but that stuttering anxiety and tension actually represents stuttering, because regular people have speech impediments. But speech impediments with tension, physical tension, emotional tension, that is stuttering. So when we remove stuttering anxiety and tension, we basically remove stuttering, because the speech impediments by themselves, they're not stuttering. Regular people have speech impediments. Everyone from time to time has some speech impediments and bloopers and like glitches. So there are some tips or exercises like breathing. Yeah, so we cannot control our heart, right? We can not control our mind, but we can control our breathing. So when we breathe, we give a signal to our heart and to our body to calm down. So that's one of the things. Making pauses, right? Each pause, when we break our speaking, so then we kind of start a new piece. So it's also a great exercise for us. Of course, it's not easy. When we get stuck, it always feels like it's one endless effort, one endless like trying to move further. So we want to split our speaking into pieces, right? Like the attitude things. When you're going for a presentation, of course, we want to concentrate and focus on the message, not thinking much about that, how we say it. Because when you have a message, you want to say it to people, right? We want to concentrate and focus on that part. And again, the attitude part is we don't want to hide. We don't want to be afraid to reveal stuttering. It's a great idea to, like before a presentation, especially when there are new people, they don't know that you stutter. It's a great idea to disclose, positively, actively disclose that I stutter, so I might speak a bit slower. Or in our case, when we're building the training speech, it's also open, active disclosure when we say that we're using the training speech, so my speaking might be a bit slower. Even though it might be not slower, and we don't, like when you use the training speech, you don't stutter, but this disclosure gives us opportunity, like real freedom to use the training speech. So again, with stuttering anxiety, I'll give the link. There are some tips, but the general idea again is to build the training speech. When we use the training speech, we don't feel that anxiety. Gradually, the anxiety goes away, that tension goes away. So it's awesome that you're giving comments. I'll be coming back to them just in a second. Maybe one more question and then I'll take a look and come back to you guys. So question number 9 that I hear all the time is, do I go to the speech therapy or I do something by myself? Like some exercises, like something with myself, reading out loud, talking to the mirror. And of course, both strategies are great. Both things are great. I'm a big fan of going to the speech therapy. That's what I did for myself. And that's what really helped me big time. And that's why I'm running Free from Stutter program these days, helping other people who stutter. So I have my students and everything. Of course, doing some exercises at home is awesome, is great. That's what I recommend doing. I have like videos with exercises. I'm giving some tips what we can do. But we want to realize that speaking is interaction. So we want to make the next step to speaking, to interaction. If you're doing some exercise at home, hoping that it will change your speaking, that's not a sustainable strategy. That's not going to happen. So we want to feel something in our exercises that we want to grow and feel the same way in our speaking, right? So, and the therapy does that. Like the Free from Stutter program does that. So we start speaking in the video calls using the the training speech that we're building. You're doing the assignments, we're going live in our bigger group. So we gradually move that to real life, that security. It doesn't stay at home. That's the whole idea of the therapy. Again, good therapy. And I also have a separate video on that, what a good therapy, like what you want to look at or for in the therapy. So before we get to the last questions, 3 questions I have, I'll take a look real quick to your comments. It's awesome to have you. So who do you really don't stutter alone? Personally, I do stutter even alone, says Anastasia. Yeah, I agree. We do stutter alone as well. The question is how much we stutter in certain settings alone compared to, for example, more stressful settings. So that's the question. Is it free? Actually, Free from Stutter program is a paid program, but right now I'm running a Free from Stutter master class where I'm sharing some exercises like strategy ideas, which is free, and that's what I suggest you checking out. You definitely can learn something from there. How it is that when we're alone we can speak perfectly. Yeah, so some people, yeah, still that's the question I get here. So Anastasia, you see, like again, we're all different, of course, in terms of severity, in terms of how it works, but for most people, being alone, being without emotional pressure, definitely feels much easier. Many people even say that we just don't stutter when we're alone, or at least we stutter much less. And again, the main reason is the interaction and the invisible part of stuttering that we still have. Hello, sir, my 3-year-old son started stuttering last month. But I'll give the link to that about like what we can do as parents. I also have a video. It's too hard to beat. Hey brother, I've been following you. Your tips streaming helped me keep doing, bro. Yeah, thank you so much. So coming back to the 3 last questions we have, just real quick. If you have some questions, please ask. Don't just anything that comes to your mind, please I'd love to hear your thoughts. Question number 10, people are asking usually, what stuttering techniques do you recommend? And I also have a separate video, we'll give the link. And like, we can try techniques. Maybe you can leave your comment saying, have you tried any techniques? And when you go to the therapy, of course, there are some techniques that they're using. I'm personally preaching about the hand stuttering technique, where we synchronize our training speech, where we put a little bit more, where we're like can feel that the connection in the speaking piece, we're making a point, we're stressing the main point, we're like feeling like the end of the speaking piece, we start again, launching the first sound. So bringing more security to our speaking, basically synchronizing it with pressing our fingers on the thigh. So that's the, again, but the techniques by themselves, when we take a technique, and oftentimes what happens, we're trying to apply it just technically to our current speaking. Even the hand stuttering technique, which is awesome, which I'm using, which my students are using to build that new training speech, when we're just trying to apply it to our current speaking, of course it doesn't work, because our current speaking is the stuttering like speaking. There is insecurity there. So the techniques, I really we can play with them, but we also like need to understand that they we're not trying to change the speaking pattern. We're trying to escape stuttering, to avoid stuttering. As long as we feel that stuttering is chasing us, and with the techniques we're trying to get through, it's not a very sustainable strategy. So that's not a very sustainable strategy. That's why I suggest thinking, like going from thinking about the techniques to our speaking pattern, what we can do with our speaking pattern, rather than and how we can grow kind of a new security in our speaking that we can feel, rather than trying to fix, to get through, and to avoid stuttering with some technique. The next question, actually I see I see the question I got. Could you give some exercises? That's exactly the next question. That's exactly the next question. 11 question for us in this video. What speaking exercises for stuttering do you recommend? I also have a separate video on that. And there are, of course, like tons of exercises. And the exercises are great because we still want to develop our breathing, our voicing, articulation, right? Like engaging our body, because tension, like when it comes to our body, we just feel very stiff. So we do want to play like actors, what actors actually do. Like, maybe famous actors who say that they stuttered, like Emily Blunt, Bruce Willis, and a number of other actors. So actors work a lot with their speaking, with their presentation, how they feel themselves on camera. And that's why I'm preaching about, I suggest not only do the exercises, but move one step further, start recording yourself. So when you're doing exercise, then you're saying maybe a phrase, maybe you're saying a bigger piece, record yourself, interact, imagine you're performing. It's also a great exercise to take a piece, a script of your favorite movie, and try to play that character, like reading the script or recording yourself, right? It's a great exercise. Usually we don't have time. We think what do I do with that? You can share your recordings, your practices, for example, in Free from Stutter Facebook group, so that it becomes the next step from your home practice with the exercises, we do want to make some steps to interacting, to speaking. And recording yourself, it's much more secure, comfortable than the real life speaking. So this way we're building that kind of confidence. We're tricking about a little bit our brain. So it's a great exercise. So we don't want to stay at home only with the exercises. That's my main point. We do want to move them to some interaction, starting with recording, posting your videos, for example, in Free From Stutter Facebook group, where we actually do that. We try to be active, try to be open about stuttering, about our speaking, try to be more positive about ourselves and like speaking in general. We also have the speaking club in Free From Stutter Facebook group, so you can join it, and we go one Saturday during each month. We have a private like speaking interaction, speaking chat. Once a month we go live in our private Free From Stutter Facebook group. So it's a great practice. Again, if you feel like, how can I join? I stutter. Yes, people stutter, but we want to go again from the comfort of our room to some speaking, especially if you're playing with some exercise. If you're trying to bring something to your speaking, then of course you want to try to explore that, feeling a little bit of that anxiety. It's still not public speaking in front of many people. We all can relate. In this group, people stutter, or they are trying to do something about their stuttering, so we all can relate. We're just exchanging our experiences, so we're all get it there. And the last question, before we get to the last question, I want to pick your comments and questions. So the effort and commitment Andrea has put forward to help stuttering. Yeah, thank you so much, Dipin. Thank you so much. Emily, how to get out of the stuttering mind? That's a great question. How to get out of the stuttering mind. And to me, it's pretty much the same as stuttering, kind of tension, anxiety, and that invisible part. Like, anyway, it's hard to articulate sometimes into words, but we have some negative feeling about stuttering, right? It's stuttering shame. Everyone can remember the first, their stories when it happened first in front of the class, for example, and we feel like, oh gosh, I did it, everyone laughed at me or something, even though maybe no one laughed, but in our mind we feel like it's a huge shame, it's embarrassment, we feel disconnected at that point, like we feel not worthy, not good enough, right? We feel like something bad happened. We feel that I don't want to do it again. So all these things, they form, maybe it's not something that of course we think about, but that's how our body feels. It's hard again to articulate in words, but in general, it's a very negative feeling we form attached to those speech impediments, to that helplessness, that I can't manage it. So how to get out of that stuttering mind, of that invisible part? So there are maybe two big things. The first one, of course, we want to focus on something positive. And I always say, and that's basically the next question. The next question that we have, maybe I'll just read the next question so we answer that question as well right away. So the next question, can I live a happy life with stuttering, right? So and the big strategy is to just focusing on something positive in our life. What is that? Just focusing on what we actually can do apart from stuttering, like what's your passion in life. And oftentimes there is a conflict. Like, I want to be an actor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be something, and how can I be that if I stutter? But that conflict, anyway, when you start striving to it, when you really want something, when you have some interest, like really something, you like something, you're passionate about something, somehow magically we find the strength to deal with stuttering, to either overcome stuttering and do that with stuttering. And I'll give the link to the Learn One Thing event, online event we had this year, where I had interviews with brilliant people who all of them stutter, like most of them. Okay, most of them stutter. Some overcame stuttering, they're preaching about overcoming, they're sharing how they did that. But anyways, most of them do stutter, but that doesn't prevent them from doing things that they want to do, like pursuing their goals, dreams, and they're sharing how they do it. So yes, we can even stuttering focus on what we want. It's hard, and that's like a big question, and that's why I had this Learn One Thing event, to really talk to these people, see how they stutter, but at the same time they're doing their stuff, they're active, they're open, they're positive. It's hard to be positive about stuttering, but we want to be positive about ourselves, about what we do. We don't want, of course, stuttering to hold us back. And at the same time, many people choose therapy. Many people choose improvement efforts. Like, I went to my therapy when I was changing jobs. I was 4 years in one job, and I grew, and I felt like I want to make like the next move. I want to like maybe a bigger role, bigger company. So that was the point when I went for therapy, and yes, it did help. I went to the job interviews right when I went to the therapy. So I was building that training speech and like the confidence. So it did help me, but it was because, again, I focused on what I really want to do. If we feel like, oh, stuttering is bad, I can't do anything, I feel depressed, at that point, it's hard to really commit to any kind of improvement, any change. So anyway, that's not a very sustainable strategy. It doesn't bring us anywhere. So getting out of that stuttering mind is still focusing on what you want to do. That's the first idea that I'm bringing. Hand stuttering technique is magical. Thank you so much. Even though, again, I'm sharing my experience as well in the Free from Stutter Masterclass, where I'm inviting you. It's gonna be live this and next week. I did use like the training speech for myself and felt the improvement, even though, again, in the Free from Stutter program, of course, we're using it a bit differently. We're growing it gradually, truly feeling like the security. When we just apply it, sometimes it doesn't work. When we, again, shift to our default speaking, then it's not quite working. But anyways, thank you so much. How slow do we need to talk in the beginning of the therapy? That's a great question, Lukasz. Yeah, thank you so much. Usually, as I see the conventional therapy, many therapies I hear from my students, they're coming to the therapy and they're talking really slow. And as we talked today about singing, yes, we're taking the best from singing. We are talking slow. it's hard to stutter at that pace, right? And the idea is that gradually we're kind of increasing that pace. I don't quite feel that strategy, I don't quite see that strategy to be working, because it's not only the pace. There are many parts to our speaking that we want to bring more security to. And the training speech that I'm preaching about, of course, we're starting much slower, like using one finger, one syllable. Like we say, how slow do we need to talk in the beginning of the therapy? So that's the pace that we want to start. Maybe even slower in the very beginning. But the idea of the hand stuttering technique is to learn, of course, it first. It's a physical skill. Like any physical skill, it takes some time to learn it. Like, playing the piano, we start like boom, boom, boom with a couple notes, gradually moving to like playing the piano. Same thing here. Again, I see that sometimes the therapists like use this idea that we start slow, gradually increasing the pace. But if we don't have like the foundation for that security, like we don't feel that security, then when we get to higher pace, it becomes a real challenge for us. The next question: hey mate, can we know something about you? Where do you live? Your likes and dislikes. That's a great question. I haven't done any personal videos. I should make a video like my story or something. Actually, I'm talking very in detail about that in the Frequent Stutter Master class. So again, until I made a video on YouTube about me, maybe it's a good idea to go and check it out in the master class. Really, I'm talking a lot about myself. I'm from Poland. Great. Tomorrow I'm going to play in the theater. Awesome. Yeah, theater is awesome. That's a great practice exercise, and just go for it. Hey mate, I don't stutter often, but the stuttering comes in like a season and comes and goes and repeats. Sometimes I feel like my stuttering is zero. Sometimes I feel like I'm stuttering a lot. Yeah, that's a great comment, because again, coming back to that question, why I don't stutter alone, we have different periods, sometimes better, sometimes worse. Sometimes some people say that it's more consistent, but many people say that they have that change in their like feeling about stuttering. And maybe it's a hard truth to face. Maybe it's a hard truth to face. But even when we don't stutter, speaking is still insecure. That's the thing for us. Because if we really feel security, if we really feel kind of confident in our speaking, then the tension, the anxiety does not arise. And that's what we're doing in the Frequent Stutter program, actually. And that's what a good therapy should be doing, growing that security so that we definitely can feel it attached to our speaking. So nice to meet you guys. Thank you. So nice to meet you. It's awesome to have you here. Lucas says, I was on therapy that was based on linear tuning. It worked very well, but the slow motion talk was very hard to do in work. Absolutely. So Lucas, that was my experience as well. I used the same like hand stuttering technique, right? And I'm preaching about it actually. At work, of course, it was hard for me too. And that's the biggest shift. So the first like big shift is to actually learn it, right? The next shift is to make sure that we're able to use it in any setting. And the best exercise here is the disclosure. So we're making sure in Frequent Stutter program that first we're disclosing it, like starting with somebody, like a close person, maybe your family member, your close friend. So when we go through that disclosure that, you know, I'm in the speech therapy, so I'll be using the training speech. My speaking might be a bit slower. Even though, again, it depends on the severity. Maybe it's not that much slower. So this disclosure exercise does magic. Once we do it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, we feel that we actually can use the training speech in any setting. So that's why the Frequent Stutter program is a 6-month program, where we're making sure that it becomes part of our speaking, real life speaking. And these disclosures, making sure that we can actively and positively disclose it, feeling good about it, not making a big point of it, just bypassing and getting to speaking actually. That's the major skill that, like the top skill that we want to gain to make sure that, again, the training speech becomes part of our speaking, real life speaking. What about eye contact? I know it's hard to do, but it's important, right? Yes, eye contact is definitely important. That's a great thing. Again, a good exercise is to shoot yourself on camera when you're taking, either speaking on some topic or, again, role playing something from your favorite movie. So that's a great thing. When you start interacting, you start performing, kind of, it's a great exercise to play and develop the eye contact for yourself, so that you go from thinking to connecting, from thinking to connecting. And again, it's the next big step is to post those videos. That's what I really suggest doing in Frequent Stutter Facebook group. It would create a little bit more reality and more like you're really interacting, even though you're still interacting only with your camera. Still, it's a great exercise. What is the cost of your therapy? Actually, the program costs $1,997, so it's around $2,000. It's a 6-month program. Yeah, so I encourage you to check out my Free from Stutter Masterclass, where I'm sharing more of my story, but most importantly, how this transformation happens in the program. I'm sharing some exercises. I'm showing more about the hand stuttering technique. So it would be great if you could check it out. Even if you don't go for the program, there is still something to learn, I'm sure. So thank you so much. It's so great to have you here. I love that you made your comments, that we interacted. It's just awesome and amazing. So let's keep in touch. I'll be coming back with more videos, with more live streams. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.